Welcome to Soul Spirit Stories, where ordinary moments reveal extraordinary truths. If you believe every soul carries a story worth hearing, then you're in the right place. Now settle in, because today's story will take you on a journey through the clouds and deep into the heart of a mystery that unfolded 30,000 feet above the earth. It all began on Flight 217 from New York to Seattle. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the sunlight seems softer, like it's filtering through golden silk. Passengers shuffled down the narrow aisle, stowing their bags, adjusting seatbelts, scrolling through phones. Everything was routine, almost boring, except for row 10. In the window seat sat a woman named Clara Hayes, mid-30s, blonde hair tied in a loose bun. She looked exhausted. Not just the kind of tired that sleep can fix, but the kind that seeps into your bones. Her eyes were red, like she had cried before boarding. When the man in the aisle seat smiled and offered to help with her bag, she only nodded faintly. No words. Within minutes of takeoff, Clara was asleep, or perhaps trying to disappear. No one knew what had brought her on that flight, but for Clara, it wasn't just a trip. It was an escape. 3 rows behind her, a little boy kept peering over his seat, watching her curiously. His mother hushed him, whispering, "Don't bother the lady, sweetheart." The plane climbed higher, cutting through layers of white clouds. The hum of the engines became a kind of lullaby for most of the passengers. About an hour into the flight, turbulence began. Light at first, then stronger. A few gasps here and there. The captain's calm voice filled the cabin, assuring everyone that it was just a passing weather pocket. The plane leveled out again, and tension melted back into calm. Then came the announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen," the captain's voice echoed again, slightly hesitant this time. "If there is anyone on board by the name of Clara Hayes, please press your call button." The passengers looked around. Some murmured. The man beside her glanced at Clara, still fast asleep, headphones in, unaware that her name had just been spoken over the intercom. The flight attendant, a woman named Laura, walked quickly down the aisle. She stopped at row 10. "Ma'am?" she said softly, touching Clara's shoulder. Clara stirred, blinking herself awake. What's wrong? Are you Clara Hayes?" Her heart skipped. "Yes, I am. Could you please come with me for a moment? The captain needs to speak with you." Clara frowned. "The captain? Why? What's going on?" Laura only smiled politely. "He'll explain everything, ma'am." Passengers watched curiously as Clara unbuckled her seatbelt, confusion written across her face. She followed the attendant toward the cockpit. As they neared the front, the captain stepped out, tall, calm, with the practiced composure of someone used to control. But there was something strange in his eyes, concern, maybe even disbelief. "Miss Hayes?" he asked. "Yes," Clara said cautiously. "Ma'am, I need to ask you something, and I know it may sound strange, but is there any chance your husband's name is Daniel Hayes?" Clara froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "He was," she whispered finally. "Why?" The captain exhaled slowly, as though he'd been holding his breath for a while. "Ma'am, we received an emergency transmission about 15 minutes ago. It was a short message from a private rescue frequency. The signal came from an area over Montana, directly beneath our flight path." Clara frowned, confused. "I don't understand." The captain hesitated, his voice dropping lower. "The name transmitted with the signal was Daniel Hayes." Clara's knees almost gave out. The flight attendant reached to steady her. "That's not possible," Clara murmured. "My husband. He's been gone for 5 years. His plane went down over the Rockies. They never found him." "I understand, ma'am," said the captain gently. "But the coordinates and the name match. And here's the strange part. The distress signal used an outdated aviation code, the kind used in older aircraft models, like the one your husband was flying." The world tilted around her. Clara pressed a hand to her chest. You think it could be him?" The captain looked torn between logic and something deeper. "We don't know. But I thought you should be aware. We've already reported it to Air Command. They're sending a team to investigate." Clara's mind raced. Images flashed. Daniel smiled the day he left, the last time she'd heard his voice on the radio. "If there's even a chance," she whispered, "would you like to listen to the signal yourself?" The captain asked quietly. She nodded. He led her into the cockpit, where a faint crackling came through a backup radio line. Amid the static, a broken voice repeated a name. Not clear, not perfect, but enough to make Clara's heart stop. "Hayes, Clara, it's me." Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "That's him," she whispered. "That's Daniel." The captain's co-pilot exchanged a worried glance. "Sir, the distress frequency is old. Could be a ghost signal or interference." But Clara shook her head violently. "No, I'd know his voice anywhere." "Please, you have to do something." The captain nodded slowly. "We'll relay it again, and if command authorizes, we might be allowed to alter course slightly, to get visual confirmation." A ripple of murmurs spread through the passengers when the plane made a subtle turn west. Most had no idea why. Clara sat back in row 10, trembling, staring out the window at the endless stretch of mountains below. She whispered to herself, "If you're really out there, Daniel." "Hold on." Minutes felt like hours. The crew worked quietly, coordinating with Air Command. Then, another transmission. Clearer this time. "Flight 217, this is D. Hayes. Engine down. Signal weak." The co-pilot froze. "Sir, that transmission just came through again. Same coordinates, less than 50 miles ahead." Clara gasped. "He's alive." The captain turned, his calm demeanor cracking just slightly. "We can't be certain yet, ma'am, but we'll pass directly over that area in about 6 minutes." Every second crawled by. The passengers, sensing something unusual, grew quiet. A strange unity filled the cabin. Strangers holding collective breath for a man they didn't know. Clara's eyes were fixed out the window. The mountains below looked endless, wild, untamed. Then, as they passed over a narrow ridge, she saw something glint. A flicker of light. "There!" she cried. "Did you see that?" The captain leaned closer to the cockpit window. "Confirming reflection. Could be metal." "Sir," the co-pilot said urgently, "infrared shows a faint heat source near that ridge." The radio crackled once more, and through the static came the faintest sound. A cough, then "Clara!" Tears streamed down her face. "It's him. It's really him." The captain radioed the coordinates immediately. Air Command confirmed dispatch of a rescue chopper. Back in her seat, Clara clutched the pendant around her neck, Daniel's old dog tag. "You promised me you'd come back," she whispered. "You kept your promise." Passengers who'd been listening whispered prayers. Some wept silently. Even the flight attendants couldn't hide their emotion. As the plane descended into Seattle hours later, Clara sat frozen, her heart somewhere over those mountains. When they landed, a crew member approached her. "Ma'am?" Air Command just confirmed something. "They found wreckage in the coordinates we passed. A man was found alive nearby, dehydrated, disoriented, but alive. He identified himself as Daniel Hayes." Clara's world stopped. "Alive?" She breathed. The attendant nodded, smiling through tears. "They're airlifting him to a hospital in Helena." Clara covered her mouth, sobbing uncontrollably. Passengers around her clapped, some crying, others simply shaking their heads in disbelief. Hours later, Clara stood in a hospital room, trembling as she reached out to touch the man lying on the bed, bearded, gaunt but unmistakably him. "Daniel," she whispered. He opened his eyes slowly, and when he saw her, a weak smile spread across his lips. "Told you. I'd find my way home." She fell into his arms, crying like a storm breaking after years of drought. Doctors said it was impossible, that the signal was likely carried by atmospheric distortion from an old transponder, somehow reactivated by shifting ice and metal. But Clara didn't care how. Some said it was a miracle. Some said coincidence. But for her, it was faith, pure and simple. Weeks later, news outlets called it the miracle of Flight 217. People around the world shared the story of the woman asleep in row 10 who woke up to a call from the skies. A call from the man she thought she'd lost forever. Daniel recovered slowly, but he never forgot what happened. "It was like something told me to try one last time." he said in interviews. I didn't know if anyone would hear me, but she did. Clara smiled quietly beside him. Love finds its way, even through static. Years later, they visited the same flight route together. As the plane crossed over the same mountains, Clara looked out the window again, feeling peace. Daniel reached over, taking her hand. Still believe in miracles? He asked. She smiled softly. Now I live with one. The passengers, sitting nearby, unaware of who they were, saw only a loving couple sharing a quiet moment. But if they'd known what those mountains had witnessed, they might have looked at them differently, because somewhere, far below, in a place where snow meets stone, the wreck of an old aircraft still lay, a silent reminder of the day love reached across time and sky. And it all began with a woman asleep in row 10. This is Soul Spirit Stories, where love defies reason and destiny whispers through the impossible. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because somewhere